Hey everybody, welcome to Thursday night. It's going to be our free agent wit tonight. It's me and Eric. Thought we'd have more people on, but I don't know what Jeff's doing. I know Sean's busy and Katie's working, so me and Eric are going to run you around the league a little bit, get you caught up with some free agent signings, to not talk about all of them per se, but just some of the big ones for each team. See which ones are, important or whatnot, or under the radar that could be important. How you doing tonight, Eric?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Trying to keep myself from getting too sick. I didn't go to work today. I got me a cold happening, so.
Well, it worked its way all the way down to Indiana to you because I had it last week.
Yeah, no, it's going around up here. It's going around everywhere. Welcome, everybody. If you're tuned in, jump in, say hello, ask some questions. We'll get to you. Hey. No, Paul wants the old intro. All right, Paul, we'll do it every other day. There you go.
I tell you what, let's talk about Paul's big signing for the day. Nathan Peterman is the if your car doesn't work out, is the guy for the Saints. So that's the big news of the day. Congratulations to the New Orleans Saints for signing Nathan Peterman.
Well, I think they had like $5 in cap space, didn't they? I don't know. Hey. You got to start somewhere. You have to start somewhere. Sorry about that, Paul. We feel bad for you, but actually, seeing as how Paul's here, let me run down the list to New Orleans. Actually, I do have to say they did do a couple things. They did re-sign Tyrann Mathieu, so that's a good thing. But getting Willie Gay from Kansas City, I think that was a really good thing. And I guess Chase Young is supposed to be coming in to visit tomorrow, I believe, from what I saw. So, they're trying to work their defense. They're trying to get their defense back to together. So, again, I don't know the Saints draft picks per se, but if you wanna throw up their draft picks for me so I could take a look at them, but I figure in free agency with probably the limited money they have, I think they're doing okay, and I think they might work on their. So they picked 14th. That's right. So I think they might be. Probably going to be working their offense in the draft. I think they're going to try to shore up their defense with some free agent signings and one more in the top 100. So, again, nothing spectacular, but excuse me, trying to get their stuff worked out on defense and free agency. Figure with 14, might be an offensive lineman. Could be a wide receiver, left tackle, JT Latham. He might be there at 14, and that would be a nice solid pickup for you. Or maybe even they do have the center, right? Don't they still have Ruiz or Cesar Ruiz or see their center? If not, even Jackson Powers Johnson might be there. So we'll see, but a tackle would probably be their best bet, and I think Latham might be their guy at 14 if that's where they're going to go. So any interesting signings, Sean? Jesus, yeah, I'm sick. Eric, any interesting or kind of off the wall signings that you saw in the last 2 days that you were just like you thought of one thing and then you were like, wow, can't believe that happened?
I think Sam Howell going to Seattle is interesting because Geno Smith may be in a make or break season. Paul mentions White to the Eagles. I mean, that's sort of interesting there. We know the Eagles are kind of trying to spend money and try to win here now. Um, Joe Mixon got a 3-year extension. That's a little interesting to me because he's kind of older and been around. So, I mean, not as busy today as it has been. You still
Right.
see, you still see busy. You know, since it starts Monday, technically, the announcements all start on Monday. You get a little less by Thursday because you've had 4 days of activity. Still some big name guys out there, and you'll see for the next 2 weeks.
I'll tell you the one thing that really got me was the fact that Buffalo was involved in Eric Armstead, and then in the last minute, we had the Jacksonville Jaguars jump in and sign him to that massive contract. And I think it could be a blessing in disguise for Buffalo, because when that deal fell through, whatever they had for Armstead, when that deal fell through, they were able to switch gears and sign Curtis Samuel. I absolutely love that signing. I think Samuel, he's been a decent receiver with subpar quarterbacks, and now we'll see what he's like with a elite high end quarterback. And I'm excited about that as a Bills fan. But just the fact that was pulled off. Yeah, I saw that, Paul. The tampering charges between the Eagles and Falcons, or not between, but with Saquon Barkley and with Kirk Cousins. Again, it's going to be one of those what the NFL really wants to do about it.
That's the problem. And we can get into that discussion at a different point. But New England got away with crap for years and years. And your commissioner is more concerned about suspending players and fining them into oblivion for making plays live on the field. But when things go on off the field, he won't do crap. But I'm not going to get into that.
Well, I'll just say that, I mean, the most they can do is dock them a draft pick. And again, it would probably matter on the draft pick. They would be docked. I mean, they fine them. Okay, you're fined $100,000, but what, you forfeit a draft pick. So again, what's the draft pick they forfeit? I mean, if you're gonna make the tampering really, I wouldn't take their first rounders, but if you're really gonna send a message about tampering, I would take a second round pick from each one of those teams. You know, if you're gonna make it that way, if you're gonna allow them to do what they're doing, then every team's gonna do it until they don't. So to me, you got to make a statement, and that statement is: you want to tamper, you lose your second round draft pick. Simple as that. Boom, boom, lickety split. I think that would make clubs more compliant with the tampering rules, and quite frankly, I know it's hard to police because players get together, players talk, players chat. You got the Pro Bowl. Players know who's going to be free agents. Players know whose contracts are up. Players know, what's going to happen. So the only thing I disagree with is that if a player talks to another player about joining their team, as long as the club doesn't use that player as a proxy for the club. But again, how do you police that, and how do you make that, not come into play? So we'll see what happens. But
so Dave, really quick for the fans watching, if I cut out, we're under a tornado watch up here in Indiana. So,
are you?
Yeah, happy Thursday, everybody.
Yeah, it snowed here yesterday and some today. So yeah, we're snow. You guys get tornadoes, we get snow.
Yeah.
Well, if we hear the siren go off, man, just go in the base or go in the bathtub or wherever.
I'm in the basement, so I'm as far down as I can go in this house, but we'll be all right. We'll ride with you here.
Yeah, take a mattress and put it over the tub and jump underneath it.
There we go. Well, anyhow, so 80 degrees in Virginia Yeah, I mean it's global warming, right, Paul? It's everywhere. So, anyways, hey, so what do we want to talk about? If anybody's listening, because we got about an hour here from the couch. Uh, Antonio Brown is reporting that Justin Jefferson may end up in Pittsburgh. Do we trust Antonio Brown as a
Never, never, ever, never, never. I guess I will never say never because anything can happen. But I don't see Justin Jefferson being happy going to Pittsburgh with their quarterback situation. And again, nothing against Russell Wilson, but I'm just saying, I think, when you, I mean, the problem with Justin Jefferson is he's painted himself into a pretty big corner, and there's really no way out for him other than to withhold his services. I mean, I know he's coming up. He wants a mega deal. And the fact is, you can't trade a Justin Jefferson to somebody who already has a receiver one, who's either do a mega deal or because here's the thing: everybody's talking about trading Justin Jefferson to the Bengals. Well, you got Jamar Chase, who's in line for a mega deal, and now you're saying, "Hey, Jamar, thanks for the 5 years you gave us. Thanks for everything you've done for us, but we're going to bring in this guy and give him a mega deal, and we thank you for your service." And so, I just, if I'm Jamar Chase, I'm like, why the hell am I even playing? You're going to come in and bring this guy in, and he's going to want $35 million a year. Well, so do I. Are you going to? And you got to pay Joe Burrow. Did Joe Burrow already redo his contract?
I don't think so.
So if he didn't, you got to pay Joe Burrow. Are you gonna have $120 million in salary cap space tied up between two wide receivers and your quarterback? I think not. So and so for all those wonderful, Justin Fields or Justin Jefferson go to this person, Justin Jefferson go to this guy. He is locked up. Oh, but even then, I don't see how you can pay both those receivers $30 million a piece and your quarterback $50 million and have salary cap either compliance or I just don't see three players taking up almost 45% of your salary cap. I just don't. That doesn't equate to a winning record, because you still have to pay your tackles, you still have to pay your guards, you still have to pay your offensive line, defensive line. Sure, avoidable years, but it's all going to come due. And so again, the problem that Justin Jefferson did was he didn't take the $30 million a year that the Vikings offered him, and I think he didn't take it because he knew that Kirk Cousins wasn't going to be the quarterback. And right now, Minnesota is in desperate need for a quarterback. So you got to figure out what they're going to do about that. And until they do something about that, Justin Jefferson is not going to be a happy camper. And so we'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting. But, the one thing I was really surprised at was not the team he went to, but the fact that the Tennessee Titans signed Calvin Ridley to that contract.
It's a big one.
Yeah. I don't know if Calvin Ridley is worth $94 million over 3 years. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that just to me, and I could be wrong, but to me, that's like the Christian Kirk deal. And Christian Kirk did great in his first year with Jacksonville, but I look at that and I'm like, where's the justification? It was crazy to me. I don't know how you feel about that, Eric, but give me your thoughts.
I'm sitting here on Twitter looking for rumors. So over the next hour to talk about and just kind of read what's going on. And it's kind of a quiet night. So, but ideally, I think he does get traded. I'm not sure where he's going yet. Cincinnati makes sense. They've lost a lot. if the Bengals roll with what they have right now, that team will be, even with Joe Burrow, will be a 6-11 team. They've lost a lot. Their defense lost a lot last year, and they signed. I believe they got Geno Stone from the Ravens, who is a good safety, but they have lots of weapons. They need. Uh, they've lost a lot of weapons. Tyler Boyd is going to probably sign somewhere. The Jets, the Chiefs, the Steelers. He's gone. T. Higgins wants out. Uh, the Chiefs signed the tight end from the Bengals. Uh, I that's a team that's lost a lot. So I mean, going big and trying to get Justin Jefferson to try to pair up with Chase and Burrow and kind of unite that LSU trio makes a lot of sense because they're going to need to be competitive because every team in that division is going to be good, including Pittsburgh, whether Dave agrees or Jeff agrees or not, because Pittsburgh has a good defense and they just need a couple offensive weapons at this point. Ravens are going to be good with Henry and Lamar Jackson, though they lost a lot of defensive pieces. And Cleveland's got probably enough to hold down on defense. The real question in Cleveland is can they get consistent quarterback play out of Watson or Winston, which neither one are a safe bet. So it's a really interesting time going on. Like Dave says, Super Bowls aren't won in March on paper. They're won when they play football and how these people mesh.
Now, Paul brings up this question, and me and you can talk about this logically, sensibly, and without any, Facebook Messenger comments. So Russell Wilson doesn't make sense to him, and I tend to agree with him. And I say this for this reason. And I said it in the messenger, but I'll say it to you. And I've said it to you before, not just talking in general. Absolutely, Mike, you did. You picked up Devin White. So here's my issue with Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh. You've allowed Mason Rudolph to sign with Tennessee. You have 35-year-old Russell Wilson, and you have Kenny Pickett. Let's say Pittsburgh does go 10-6, 11-5, or 11-7, or 11-6, 10-7, whatever. Gets in the playoffs. Other than the fact, and you've only signed Russell Wilson to a one-year deal, so you can sign him to another $1.2 million deal the following year. My issue is, when does Pittsburgh make the move to get his replacement? When? Because look at me, Eric, me and you talked last year, and you sat in that chair during the 5-week or 4-week Pittsburgh run to get to 10-7. And you were saying how great Mason Rudolph looked. He threw 7 touchdowns, had 1 pick, 2 pick, whatever the hell it was. I don't remember. But you said how good he looked, how comfortable he looked, how those players responded to him in the pocket. He was the leader of that team. And Seattle got rid of a huge, and Russell Wilson took a huge cap hit. They got draft picks. Seattle got a lot of draft picks, but they took a cap hit. Denver has them for 2 years and decides, I don't want this guy. I'd rather take $90 million in dead cap money over 2 years and keep this guy. So if I was Pittsburgh and had a young quarterback that I was developing, sure. I don't think Kenny Pickett's that quarterback that's going to develop. I think Kenny Pickett's Kenny Pickett. And nobody's developed behind Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson hasn't left a legacy of quarterbacks. They went out and signed Geno Smith. So it's not like they're leaving a legacy. It's not like Russell Wilson has been on a team that had a young quarterback that sat behind Russell Wilson, developed, and then took over for Russell Wilson when he left. So my issue is, and my thing I'll ask you is, what is Pittsburgh's plan going forward? Because they're going to, if they are in the middle of the pack in draft picks, what quarterback are they going to get?
Man, Dave, that was a long question that you just asked me.
I know.
I know. So that was a long-winded question. Did anybody develop after Peyton Manning? Because Andrew Luck didn't play under Manning. And when Manning left Denver, Brock Osweiler didn't develop under Peyton Manning, nor did it happen in New Orleans. Nor has Sean Payton done anything without Drew Brees. And Paul, you can read the story about Brees throwing Peyton under the bus, or not Brees, but some of his receivers throwing Peyton under the bus, saying Brees carried him for years. So as far as that's concerned, playing quarterback in the NFL is probably one of the hardest jobs in sports, outside of playing goalie in the NHL. I mean, it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
There are maybe 5 or 6 franchise quarterbacks in the NFL right now.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't 2008 when you've got half the league that are potentially franchise quarterbacks. The age of heroes is over. Sure. These quarterbacks are not here anymore. You've got Josh Allen, you've got Mahomes, you've got Burrow, you got Lamar Jackson. You can, in the NFC, maybe none. Maybe none. Maybe the guy from San Francisco, but we don't know. Jalen Hurts, we thought. Maybe not.
I think Dak Prescott. I think not. And again, you know, I understand your point, but again, I think a lot of it goes to coaching. I think a lot of it goes to, you know, again, I think the development of any quarterback goes back to coaching. I think a lot of it goes back to having the right coaching staff, the right quarterback coaches, the right guys who do, you know, like for example, Josh Allen has Joe Brady as his offensive coordinator. He was his quarterback coach, but in the offseason, he goes to Jordan Palmer and he toodles them and does all this stuff, or goes under his tutelage and works on his mechanics of things he sees that he does right, wrong. And I'm sure a lot of quarterbacks do that. But I just don't see growth with Kenny Pickett. And I'm just wondering, I'm just asking, what do you think Pittsburgh's plan would be, even if they middle pack?
So if you hear my dogs barking, my DoorDash is here.
That's okay. You can get your DoorDash. Go ahead. That's all right. Yeah, get it. But no, like I said, I think, yeah. And I think Justin Herbert, to Paul's point, here's the question, folks, if you can't see it. I think Herbert puts himself on the map under Harbaugh. I do believe you're correct, because I don't think they're going to make Justin Herbert do a lot of the things that Brandon Staley did. I don't think Brandon Staley was a good coach. I don't think Brandon Staley had a good staff. I think Brandon Staley forced Justin Herbert, not that Justin Herbert's not a good quarterback, but I think he forced him to do a lot of things and made Justin Herbert have to win or lose games on his own. I think you're going to see a game plan. I think you're going to see smart coaching decisions. I think you're going to see them use the run game more often and more effective. So, yeah, I think Herbert does well under Harbaugh, because Herbert and Harbaugh has that pedigree of developing quarterbacks. He developed Colin Kaepernick. Go ahead.
I was listening to Paul here. I don't think Herbert's earned that spot yet. Yeah, he looks good, got nice hair, makes a nice throw here or there, but he's not winning. I hear all day long from Jeff all these metric and all these stats, and I could really care less. If you're not winning games, you can have whatever metric. You could be top 10 in whatever fantasy football category you want to be. But if you go on the football field and I'm game planning to win and I beat you and you throw 500 yards, I still beat you. So ideally, he's not there yet. He might be there. We'll see. To answer your question before my DoorDash came, and I apologize, Russell Wilson, if he's a 1 year, it doesn't cost you anything. And if Kenny Pickett beats him out, you can get rid of the contract without any damage. So ideally, if he can recapture the magic, the difference between him and Mason Rudolph is ideally Mason Rudolph is good enough to beat the Cincinnati Bengals. He's good enough to beat the backups, maybe not Burrow, we don't know. Good enough to beat Seattle. He's good enough to win certain games. but he's not going to be a guy that could potentially recapture some old magic. And look, if Cam Hayward says, I want Russell Wilson at this point of his career as they try to capture lightning in a bottle, you're going to listen to Cam Hayward at this point of the career because he's ideally the leader on that team. So ideally, if that's what they're clamoring and that's what they think they need, they better get him some weapons right now because Curtis Samuel signed with the Buffalo Bills, which is a good third receiver option for Josh Allen. I still think they need to draft a receiver, a big possession receiver to give Allen in that offense. But ideally, if Russell Wilson can throw 28 touchdowns and have 6 picks in that offense with that team, with that defense now, with that linebacking core of Roberts, Queen, Highsmith, and Watt, that is a team that's going to be very good.
Right. No, I understand that. I get all that. My whole thing is, first of all, I do take one issue with if a player says we should go out and sign this guy, we better go out and sign him. Okay, that's why I have a scouting staff. So I don't need my player to tell me what I should and shouldn't do. Because, yeah, Russell Wilson could be a popular guy, okay, and people like Russell Wilson. Doesn't mean that, hey, if Cam Hayward says we need to go out and sign Russell Wilson, I'm going to forego my plan as a team just to sign a 35-year-old guy to finish 10-6 again when I could have had a guy who I could have signed to a longer-term contract. It might have cost me a little more money because, again, I'm only paying $1.5 million. But if I'm coming in as Russell Wilson to compete with Kenny Pickett, I don't think he's competing with Kenny Pickett. I think Russell Wilson is the starting quarterback. There's no competition. There shouldn't be. And if there is, that shows the state of Russell Wilson, that you're going to compete with a 6-touchdown guy and you're Russell Wilson. I don't think
he's a first-round pick, and it's not about his 6 touchdowns. It's about they're going to put – I don't think he's competing either. I think he's got the job. But they're not going to tell a first-round pick in the hopes that he somehow turns around this summer and turns into Kurt Warner.
Well, the thing is, New England did it. New England realized they made a mistake. Granted,
Max in his 3rd or 4th year, right?
Yeah, this is going into his 4th year.
Yeah, Kenny's 2. So yeah, but I think if Kenny sucks, he's out in the 3rd year, just like Mac.
Right. Well, but again, I think the problem is you had a new regime come in New England with Mayo, but I think after their 2nd year, I think New England knew that Mac Jones was not the answer.
So here's my retort to you and Paul. I think if your leaders are saying, what do we need to get over the hump? Because I told you Rooney made a statement. I'm done with one and dones. We're done with not. We want to win playoff games. So if you get your leaders of the team together and you consult them, and they say, hey, we like Mason, but we need somebody more than Mason in order to beat the Buffalo Bills in round 1. I think that takes into effect because it's a team. You can have a scouting department all you want. You can have a coach all you want. But if you have one guy running it as a dictatorship, that doesn't work in business, and that won't work in football either. The days of ruling with an iron fist like Tom Coughlin are long over. This is 2024 and how we run teams. So is Wilson the guy? He needs to be 28-6. And if he's 28-6, Paul, that comparatively to their 13 total touchdowns throwing last year, that will improve them a couple games and possibly give them a home game.
I gotta take issue with that for 1 second. I do take issue with that 28-6, and I say this. I say it wholeheartely because you say 28-6 will change games. Okay, we'll give them a couple more games. So I'm only using this reference because in our chat we go back and forth between Pittsburgh, Buffalo, this and that about Jeff and Eric do. I don't get involved in their nonsense. But you say 28-6. Well, Josh Allen had 54 total touchdowns, and you were 1 game behind us, and Kenny Pickett had what? So the touchdowns a quarterback throws or gets does not necessarily translate to so many more victories. I mean, that's just a statistical fact. And again, Pittsburgh's building their defense. I understand that. I get it. But for example, Russell Wilson could have 2 games and throw 5 touchdowns in each game. There's 10. And you got 15 more games left, and now now he gets 14 touchdowns or 18 touchdowns in 10 more games. So because he threw 5 and 2, and he only won those games. So it doesn't necessarily translate to more wins. It just translates to he had a great game and he threw a lot of touchdowns.
Well, the difference is, Dave, and I think you have a wonderful quarterback, and I think he's tremendous, and I don't disagree with anything you said about him. But the difference is I think the supporting cast outside of a Josh Allen and a Diggs is better, especially on defense, and I think they find ways to win more innovatively than I think my coach is better than your coach, because I think my coach can innovatively win without having a quarterback that needed to throw 30 or 40 touchdowns. And I think in Buffalo with your coach, if you had 13 touchdowns, I think you would be 3-14. Because I don't think McDermott could engineer victory with that team without Josh Allen doing what he's doing. And so I think that's the difference in that conversation.
Oh yeah, teams are definitely built different, and I'm not bagging on Pittsburgh or Buffalo. All I'm doing is I'm just comparing the stat. I'm just saying that you can have those stats, but they don't necessarily translate to more victories.
What's a bummer here? We're having this conversation, and I don't disagree. I think he needs. I think anything. We've had this discussion with Jeff, and it's a bummer he's not here because he and I would probably go that like Skip Bayless versus Shannon Sharp here.
Right.
Ideally, I don't disagree with that. So you need a franchise quarterback, or you need a quarterback that can transcend moments and weighty moments, that can be good in winning time. And if you don't have that, any coach isn't going to look great. You're not going to have some. You're not going to have some Bill Belichick, elite best coach of all time, obviously with Brady gone, look great unless he has a guy that can transcend games. And so ideally, he will always have a winning season and engineer victories and motivate his team, but he'll never look good unless Russ can recapture the magic. So are you telling me that out of my choices were Kirk Cousins, and pay him millions of dollars, Justin Fields, who is a great athlete but isn't really proven anything, based on what I had in front of me, it's a safer bet for me that Russ can go and get back some of his magic than think that Mason can somehow evolve at 29 years old enough to be that quarterback to transcend the game and go on the road and beat Buffalo. And so,
I agree. And again, I think even when you have a quarterback that transcends the game, because look, Tom Brady was that guy. I mean, Tom Brady was a quarterback who transcended the game. But like I said, there were games that his defense had to show up to win. Tom Brady didn't go to all them Super Bowls and win those on his own. There was a couple of those Super Bowls that the defense won, or the kicker won, or whatever. So it's not like Tom Brady, and this is my argument about the quarterback position in general. You're blamed for the losses and you're praised for the wins. But it's more involved than just, it's not black and white. People make it black and white because the quarterback takes all the credit, gets all the credit for the team winning, and the quarterback gets all the blame for the team losing. And we've had this argument back and forth about what you call waning moments or whatnot. You can only have a waning moment if you lead your team down to victory and your defense doesn't give up points coming back. And then you don't have a waning moment anymore. But for the quarterback himself, he did those things. He did those things in the weighty moment and put his team in the lead. He can't play defense.
So, but Dave, playing quarterback, when I look at a quarterback, even at my level, and I look at a quarterback, it isn't just what does he do on the field. What is his impact on the guys around him?
Sure.
Are they willing to run through a wall?
Yeah.
I was blessed to watch one for 18 years, and boy, oh boy, it was whether it was Brett Kiesel or any of those dudes, they were going to go and they were going to go hard.
And you cannot tell me that Josh Allen does not have a team that will run through a wall for him, because they will. It's not the fact of that.
We could have this discussion, and we will have this discussion someday. And maybe tonight was the perfect night, but Jeff decided that he didn't want to get on here. And I don't blame him, Jeff. After taking you to the woodshed all day, I could start the night off. So ideally, it's okay. In order to be the best, you got to beat the best, right? And
That's
so
right.
ideally, I see Paul said Jameis Winston, and that's exciting to me, because how do we feel about, Jeff dismisses backup quarterbacks, but last year we saw what, 60? How many starting quarterbacks did he say Tuesday night? We had 72 or 80 quarterbacks starting.
I think it was like 74. I think there were 74 starting quarterbacks last year or something like that.
74. Yeah,
something like that.
So these quarterbacks are important. I know that Adam was talking, and I hope he's watching. Adam was like, hey, I hope you talk about Joe Flacco and the Colts, how we signed another, because he's a Colts fan, how we signed another 40-year-old quarterback to come into Indianapolis. I bet you with Anthony Richardson's running style, Joe Flacco will have to play again. And ideally, because Watson hasn't proved to do what? He's played 14 games in 2 years. We're going to see Jameis Winston, and we're going to see him motivating his team by eating some fake crabs with his fingers, or however he did it.
Sure.
So, these are important decisions. Mitch Trubisky could be an important decision with their running quarterback. I mean, so ideally, who you decide is going to be that guy that is worth talking about. Does he fit your system like Mitch does? And is Mitch better in Buffalo than he is in Pittsburgh?
Maybe.
Maybe.
I mean, but that's it. I mean, the thing for backup quarterbacks is you hope you never have to find out. What I can say about the Winston signing in Cleveland is I think the one thing that it does is it doesn't put Cleveland in a situation where they have to go from quarterback to quarterback to quarterback to quarterback till they find the right one. I think Winston can give you what you need if your starter goes down. Now, will it be perfect? Obviously, his past reputation, record, stats, and everything will say no. But again, do I think that he fits what they're doing in Cleveland? I think he's the same type of quarterback as a Deshaun Watson. He's not going to be a guy who's going to run all over the place. He's going to stand in there. He's going to deliver the ball. Will he do it off target sometimes? Probably, because it's just part of who he is. Will he try to force the ball? Will he try to do those things? Sure, because that's who he is. But again, I think it gives stability to an otherwise unstable position on your team. And that's really what you want your backup quarterback to do, is give your team stability if your quarterback goes down. I don't think you want to play guessing game. I don't think you want to play, oh shit, do I really have the right quarterback? Case in point, Tennessee, when they had Ryan Tannehill and drafted Malik Willis. You had a rookie backing him up, and any offense that Malik Willis ran was nothing like Tennessee's whatsoever. So when Ryan Tannehill goes down and Malik Willis has to come in, you basically have to, in a week's time, you have to change your entire offense for him to be comfortable in it, because he wasn't comfortable playing that style of offense at all. So again, I think it goes to comfortability and just being able to manage that offense. So
let me ask you a question, Dave, because we got maybe 20 minutes so, and I want to talk about this with you real quick, since we're on the show and we're kind of freelancing this.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about where drafting Curtis Samuel, and where does that put wide receiver in your list of needs for Buffalo at the draft?
Well, I think it's going to depend on what happens in free agency later as the weeks go on. Buffalo still needs to draft a wide receiver. Definitely. I don't think they signed Curtis Samuel to be the number 2 guy. I think he could. Like I said, I think Samuel has put up some decent numbers with some fairly average quarterbacks. I think that he could be that guy, but I still think they draft a receiver. The thing that I'm looking for now is if I'm Buffalo, to me, this would be the perfect opportunity if I don't go get a guy in free agency and I'm drafting 28. If I take some of my draft capital that I had, that I would try to move up and draft like Cooper DeJean. I think that would be Buffalo's ultimate goal if they don't go grab a safety to package draft picks. Maybe they're one. I think the only thing that screwed Buffalo is their compensatory pick was a 4th rounder, not a 3rd rounder. And I think that hurts them from their ability to trade up, because I don't think Buffalo wants to give up the 2nd round pick because they do have holes to fill. So again, they might try to move up, but I believe wide receiver will be the secondary issue depending on who falls where. Because again, I think free agency is going to alter some teams' plans. It might change a little bit of the draft order and where guys fall and what they need and what they don't. But, Buffalo still needs a wide receiver without a doubt.
Okay, so I'm reading some of Paul's chat. Paul, if you're the only one watching us, God bless you. So ideally, I want to hit on this. Where does Ryan Tannehill end up?
Ryan Tannehill. Who's Miami's backup? Skylar Thompson?
I think so.
I could see Ryan Tannehill going back to Miami as a backup. I don't know. Maybe the Chargers. Easton Stick is a free agent. I could see him maybe going to back up Justin Herbert in LA. I don't think in Jim Harbaugh's offense, I don't think you need a guy that's going to have to throw the ball 50 times a game. I think he's going to have a nice run pass balance. I don't think you're going to see the same Justin Herbert who has to do everything himself. But again, the Chargers are in cap hell also. They still have to either cut or trade or re-sign or redo a bunch of contracts to get under the cap. And I think they have till the end of today to do that. So, they already had to cut Mike Williams. I don't know if Khalil Mack gets traded. I don't know if he gets cut. So again, there's a lot of cap issues with the Chargers. But I could see him going back to Miami. I think that would be a nice fit for him. Play behind Tua. Give Miami, at least if something happens to Tua and their offense is still good, you're not going to put it in the hands of a Skylar Thompson.
I agree. I don't disagree. So hitting on that point, we've got let's see, they released Williams, which cleared about $20 million. I think they restructured Mack and Bosa, so I think they're both there. Okay, moving forward, we got Tannehill done. I think he's about the biggest name quarterback left. What do you want to talk about the last 15 minutes, Dave?
Let me just go through here. Let me just take a look at something. Just because I want to make sure we hit on. I'll ask you this. What do you think of the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones saying we're going to go all in, and their all in has consisted of Eric Kendricks?
So what's really funny to me about that is Derrick Henry said they didn't even call. So they've got Deuce Vaughn at running back, and he's what, 5'6"? So he's kind of tiny. So he's not an everyday back. And you've got Dak Prescott, and you're like, okay, well, we're going to go all in, and we're going to try to win a Super Bowl, but we're not going to try to help him any. It looks rough. I mean, I don't know what they're doing, what their plan is, what they're waiting for. I keep thinking somebody's going to get cut, and they're trying to wait on this certain player. ideally, like they were hoping Mack or Bosa got cut, and they were going to sign Bosa and Parsons to play together, and that was some secret plan that Jerry Jones had. It's concerning. I mean, if you told me right now, where do I think the Dallas Cowboys will finish? Not any better than they were last year. Ideally,
I think based on the moves that the Giants made, I think Dallas could finish below the Giants if the Giants had a quarterback.
yeah, and we don't know. If you listen to Twitter, we think Daniel Jones could still be a good quarterback, but I disagree. But ideally, the Giants are an interesting team. Man, if Sam Howell's now in Seattle, if they could somehow get Geno Smith to come down there and play and come to that offense, that could be a good team. Ideally, you need a quarterback, and I keep arguing, like this is why I like the Wilson trade. You need productivity out of your quarterback. And Washington's been making good moves too. Dallas, this isn't a given. I mean, ideally, if you have wide receivers that aren't running, about a half second slow, and you start things don't work out, and you don't have the right chemistry, you could end up going from being first to being in fourth place in that division if a couple things happen and the Giants catch fire. I do think Philadelphia, this looks good on paper, but I've seen this before. I've seen this story with Cleveland so many times where they hire or they sign all these guys and they give them all this money, and the next thing you know, they all hate each other. And
what I really want to know about Philly is how they can keep affording all these guys. I mean, last year, I know there were draft picks, and I know that there are a lot of their draft money. And they drafted the friggin' Carter, but they signed Bryce Huff, Saquon Barkley. They bring back Gardner Johnson. You got Brandon Graham back. You just signed Bush. You have freaking Landon Dickerson. I mean, the list goes on, and they're good players, but it doesn't equate. You know what I mean? It's like you can have all these good players, and that's why I say you can be the paper champion in March. It doesn't mean absolutely nothing between September and January.
Dave, do you remember the year they had the dream team and they signed Nnamdi Asomugha, and everybody thought the Eagles were going to be the team because of their free agency? Seems a little familiar. So we'll see if these guys get along and they don't end up killing each other in the locker room because they're all a bunch of overpaid guys. But I don't know. I mean, I think it's kind of funny watching Tiki Barber and Saquon Barkley go at it. I think that was kind of hilarious.
Right.
So we'll see. I mean, we thought they had a good draft. I remember sitting here on draft night with, I think your son was on, and we were talking, and like, God, Philadelphia's getting all these, great talented players, and then they sure didn't get along last year.
Right. So, Paul, here, let me just go over these real quick. So, Bryce Huff signed a 3-year, $51 million contract. Barkley, 3 years at $37.75. Gardner Johnson, 3 years at $33 million. Brandon Graham, a 1-year deal. I don't know what it was for. Let's see. Jake Elliott, 4 years at $24 million. Landon Dickerson, 4 years at $84 million. And then they have a couple other guys that are signed for 1 year, 2 years without term. So if these guys are playing cheap this year, okay, I forget how much cap room Philly had, but it's going to catch up to these guys in 2 years. And you're going to have to pay Jalen Hurts. So, I mean, they think their Super Bowl window is now. I guess you go for it. In the NFC, everything is up in the air. Everything's up for grabs. So it's not inconceivable to think that it's not. But if it doesn't work out, you're going to put yourself in cap hell. I'd like to see how these contracts are structured. But if they're all for voided or loaded years at the end, I don't know what you do with these guys. It's going to be interesting. So. And they signed Devin Bush. So
Devin Bush went to Cleveland. They signed. They did get somebody.
White.
And I was going to say I'll have to look it up.
They signed White.
Devin White. Yeah, Devin White.
Devin White, not Devin Bush.
This does remind me of the Rams. I mean, so you either win it or you really have consequences coming.
The only thing different about this team and the Rams is the same thing that Buffalo did, and this is why I thought the Rams were smart. the Rams said, screw the draft picks, and they gave away draft picks to guys with expiring contracts. So they gave away their first round, second round, whatever round pick, and they got guys that fit within their cap during that year. And then they didn't have to worry about carrying any money over, because once that contract was gone, that money was gone. They didn't have to worry about carrying dead cap space for these guys, because once that contract was finished, it was done. There was no cap carryover. And that was my argument with Buffalo and some of those other teams who signed these guys in free agency, give them these astonishing deals, and then they have to play cap monopoly every year because they hand out guys who are 34 years old, $120 million contracts, and then they got to keep pushing the cart down the road. So the Rams did it smart. They didn't have any draft picks to refortify their team, but they didn't have any money sitting there being burnt for no reason. So we'll see. We'll see what Philly does. I mean, it's going to be interesting. Let's see another team. Let's talk about your Steelers. Not on the quarterback. We already know Russell Wilson. Tell me your thoughts on the other signings. The Patrick Queen, Kristen Kuntz, the long snapper, and the trade with for Deontay Jackson, getting rid of Deontay Johnson. What do you think? What does that do to Pittsburgh?
Well, defensively, they're pretty set. So they also got Deshaun Elliott from Miami, who's going to be a hard-hitting safety that's going to play in the box and let Minka go back and do what he's built to do, which is go play center field and read the field and go be a more Ed Reed type. Because Minka struggled physically with injuries trying to play in the box. He was hurt a big portion of the year, and he wasn't right in the playoffs. So that's a sneaky good move. Look, that corner, he's going to end up being the starter next to Joey Porter. And ideally, that's not really the story. They're done on defense, actually. I don't think you're going to see this much addressed. Maybe a defensive lineman in the draft somewhere at 3 or 4. But ideally, this is it. They're done on defense because Patrick Queen, with the Landon Roberts, Highsmith, and Watt, is going to be your key to their season. You've got Roberts, who's a great run stopper, great blitzer, and carried the defense last year, having to make calls, played through some injuries, but Quan Alexander, Cole Holcomb, those guys went down. Miles Jack had to be brought back from the street because they were so thin at middle linebacker, but Roberts was consistent. Now you give him a Patrick Queen. Queen's going to call the defense. He's good. He's called good defenses in Baltimore. He knows AFC North football, and that's going to really say, okay, well, we know Queen's going to be there to make that 3-yard or that stop, 3 yards down the field. We know Roberts is going to be there to fill his gap. That's really going to let TJ Watt, if he can stay healthy, really take off, because ideally he's not going to have to worry about who's going to be there, who's going to be here. Do I need to move inside on this play? Do I need to? No, you just need to go forward, and you just need to attack. And Highsmith just needs to attack. That defense is going to be really nasty. So ideally, if you can get an offense that's competent and not shooting yourself in the foot. So if Russell comes in and starts throwing a bunch of picks and they put the defense in a bad position, it's all for nothing. But if he can come in, put some points on the board, and they can score 20 points a game, they're going to be tough. Because I think it's on paper, and we'll see what happens in September, but on paper, it's the best defense in the AFC North right now.
So let me ask you this question, real quick. Out of the wide receivers that are available, where do you think they go? What do you think they do? Who do you think they look at?
And let's not deny for anybody on the show, we are fans of our teams, so we track what's going on with our teams during the day. And I know Dave and Jeff does it too, even though he denies being a fan. He's a fanboy just like I am. So I've been tracking this. Ideally, the Tyler Boyd thing is the next thing to kind of wait and see what happens. He has interest in coming back home. He's from Aliquippa. He's a local, and he's expressed interest in playing for Mike Tomlin. So if they get Tyler Boyd in there with Arthur Smith's system, you're going to see a 2 wide receiver, 2 tight end set. They've already got Darnell Washington and Pat Freiermuth and Connor Hayward. So ideally, they just need that receiver, and I think they draft one. maybe second, third round. I would love for them to take a first round big body like Tez Walker, but I think they get one in the second, third round that is kind of a slot type receiver to come in and be interchangeable with Boyd on the outside. And they still have, they're probably counting on more production out of Calvin Austin. But Tyler Boyd's kind of my feeling of what they do. Mike Williams is a possibility because he's a big body, but he's injured a lot. So ideally, I think that's where they go there.
You don't think a Hollywood Brown would be attractive to him?
I think they've had enough of that family. I don't think they signed Antonio Brown's cousin.
Yeah, gotcha. All right, so I'm gonna talk about my Buffalo Bills real quick, just because I actually think they did a pretty decent job, and what I mean by that is, from the beginning, Brandon Beane said, "Hey, we're not going to go out and spend a lot of money. We don't have a lot of money to spend." What he did do is he made sure that he got cap compliant and that he brought back the youth of the defense. And he brought back those guys. He brought back Epinesa. He brought back Daquan Jones. He brought back Deion Dawkins, or he re-signed him to an extension. I know you're not a big fan of Deion Dawkins, but that being said, he's a fourth-rated pass blocker in the league. And so take it for what you want. It is what it is. You talk about PFF grading all the time. I guess PFF don't lie in your book. They brought Taylor Rapp back, guy who played in the defense last year. They went out and signed Mac Hollins, who's probably going to be more of a special teams type guy. But again, 2 years ago when they had Derek Carr and they brought in Devontae Adams, that year he played with Devontae Adams and Derek Carr. He put up some pretty decent numbers. That's the highest he's had. He was like 57 for 6-something and 4 touchdowns. But he's probably going to be more of the special teams punt returner guy. But they can throw him in there in 4 wide receiver sets or so. And then, of course, Curtis Samuel. I love that signing. He's physical and he's fast. He's the kind of guy that's going to do a lot of what Stephon Diggs was doing last year with those wide receiver screens, those pop passes, and, get yards after. So, again, I like what they did. Mitch Trubisky coming back as the backup. I think it's fine. I know that he fits that offense. And again, I'm hopeful that he doesn't have to play 8-10 games. I'm hopeful that he gets mop-up duty. And if God willing, just like Pittsburgh, I hope Kenny Pickett has to play mop-up duty. Because again, we see the results when it doesn't happen. So I think for all of us, we all want our starting quarterbacks to remain healthy to give our teams the best opportunity to win. But again, I think Buffalo had to shed age and injury to get. So to me, it's you take one step forward or one step back to take 2 steps forward. And I'm not going to sit there and say that Buffalo is dead in the water, because they're not. Okay. Contrary to popular belief, Buffalo is not. Their Super Bowl window hasn't closed. I don't think their Super Bowl window open. I think the fact is, you got 32 teams trying to get to the Super Bowl. 2 of them make it. 30 of them don't. And only one of them's a winner. So, again, I think from the standpoint of right now, Buffalo has the same shot as 32 other teams. Again, it's gonna depend heavily on the draft. They got to get more hits and misses. They got 11 picks. They got to be smart about them, and they got to move them around and do what they have to do, whether that's taking some of those picks, trading them this year for next year, or moving up in the draft to see what they can do. But again, I just look at it. I look at a team like Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has 5 picks in the draft? I think 5. Some of these teams have really a lot of holes and not a lot of picks.
And so Pittsburgh has, I believe, they have a first, a second, 2/3, and then I think they have a 5th and 2 7s.
Oh, okay.
But you're not filling things after the 3rd round,
right?
Those are just special teams.
There's some teams like Carolina, stuff like that, who don't have a lot of picks. And again, if I'm Buffalo, I could also look at pick 28 and saying, you know what, I can get my guy at pick 1 and then get more picks and then trade back up into the 1st round. So is Carolina a team I try to trade with to move back, have Carolina move into the first round and get a couple picks. So again, I mean, Buffalo has options, but as I said, the season isn't won in March. There's a long way to go, a lot of maneuvering. There's free agents still out there to be had. There's free agents that come due in July, August, right before the football season that you don't even know are going to be free agents until they get cut. That could help a team. I mean, the one thing that's satisfying to me as a Bills fan is with the Tre'Davious White release, they released them as a post-June 1st cut. So as of June 1st, Buffalo gets another $10 million in salary cap space. So whatever they don't fill now, you never know who's going to become available throughout the summer. And you might find that guy that could get you over. I mean, like I said, Leonard Floyd was not signed until the day before training camp. And that was one of the best pickups in free agency from a defensive standpoint, from a impactful at that late stage of free agency to get a guy who got 12 and a half sacks. So there's always those gems that if you wait long enough, you find them. So any final thoughts, Eric, before we take off and wrap up this show?
No, I think I don't disagree. I would like to see Buffalo take a big swing here this year and try to figure out if with Diggs, if it's actually going to work out for your Bills, and if it's going to be, I mean, if it's going to, I'd like to see you guys. I think you have enough to get by on the line. I think you have enough to get by with some defensive pieces, and I think you could pick up some guys in the second and third round to fill out your defense. I'd like to see you take a big swing on a receiver and try to give Allen a real shot with a real set of weapons. If not, trying to get A.J. Brown or Justin Jefferson and really find out. And then if you know what, if you go in the second round and you lose again, then just be done, for God's sakes, and quit dragging this shit out every year.
Well, the thing that I would like to see him do, I mean, I would love, if I'm a Bills fan in fantasy land, I would love to see him take a swing at Justin Jefferson. I would love Buffalo to go out and trade my first pick this year. I wouldn't give up my second this year. I'd give up my first this year, maybe 2 fourths, and my first next year for Justin Jefferson. I would do that.
But that's my point, is you guys should get aggressive and find out if this really is going to work out. I don't think it's Josh Allen is the guy that's jobs on the line, but I think there are some other guys who have been part of your core who
Sure.
we've seen year after year after year, and it's time.
Yeah, well, I think the Curtis Samuel signing probably puts that big swing out of existence.
I don't think so. And here's why, Dave. I think if A.J. Brown comes up and you can free up the cap space and you look at it and you say, can I finally win a Super Bowl for this franchise that is cursed, that has a graveyard in its parking lot, which is bizarre, but we have all this crap going on. Can we finally put the end to this misery and win a Super Bowl? I think you try to win a freaking Super Bowl.
Oh, well, no, I believe you, and trust me.
Yeah.
I think that's why you've seen Brandon Beane do certain things. I think that's why you see Brandon Beane signing Von Miller to a $120 million contract. I think that's why you do that. I think the problem is Buffalo looks on the wrong side of the ball to keep taking swings. You have a generational quarterback and you don't give him the proper weapons.
Yeah.
You can give him a step on Diggs, but then you give him, nothing. You give him nothing to take any pressure off that guy. I mean, they thought Gabe Davis was going to be that guy. No. He showed out in certain games. In certain games, he looks like a world beater. And in other games, he looks like he should be in street clothes. And again, it's one of those things where on the offensive side of the ball, you need consistency out of both your receivers, and you need consistent running attack to be successful. They finally started with the running attack. I was really upset that they didn't go out and try to sign Derrick Henry. I really thought that Derrick Henry would have made a difference in Buffalo, even if you don't sign the wide receiver. I just think it makes their offense that much harder to defend.
And so, yeah, as my final thought, and I don't want to get distracted by uh, potential Vice President Aaron Rodgers, because Sean's in the comments. But that's my final thought is like,
Yep.
really commit. I would, if I had Bean, I would go in the locker room and I'd say, look, this is a make or break year for us. We either get over the hump or we're going to make some changes here, because ideally you're paying these guys really well and their job is to win you a Super Bowl. Ideally, you've got a generational quarterback, as you say. The surrounding cast, enough of the second, like Rooney said, enough of the first round exits, enough of the second round exits, of losing these games, enough of losing to Cincinnati, enough of losing to Kansas City. Let's go win these games, and let's win it decisively, because we have a guy that can do it. And if there's consequences, if Diggs drops a huge pass, and if he catches that ball, you win that game. But you want to be paid $45 million. Make that cash, and be that guy. Quit coming up with excuses and then looking at my quarterback and putting my arms up and acting like an idiot. Go be that guy. Shut your mouth and play football. And so I think it's about time to. I want to see that. I want to see, like, okay, you either are or you're not. And if you're not, it's okay. It's hard. I get it, but I'm this is a business, and the business is winning. I can't worry about your feelings. And so that's my final thought for the night.
So my final thought is this. I'm excited. I enjoy this time of the year. Two things. I think we can stop saying that the AFC South is going to be a joke. I think that division just got real interesting. I'm really looking forward to watching Houston, Indy, and Jacksonville. I think the only thing with Jacksonville was their miscalculation with Calvin Ridley. I think if they would have re-signed Calvin Ridley, I think that division could have been a toss-up. But be that as it may, I do believe that division is going to be a lot better than we give it credit for the last 2 years, just based on the youth they have and the guys that they've signed. Also, I believe the AFC North is going to be fantastic. It is going to be knockdown, drag out. It's going to be a war of attrition, I believe. Who's left standing and who's not. Again, that's just a physical division, and your quarterbacks better be up for the challenge, or you're going to be going through a bunch of them. We've seen it year in and year out. Every quarterback in that division has been out with an injury one time or another over the last 2 years. So I hope your quarterbacks and your offensive lines can protect, and your quarterbacks can protect themselves. And my final thing for Tuesday, it's pretty much going to be a free-for-all. We don't have a lot of, like I said, segmented stuff. We'll try to come up with something, but free agency is still going on. And we are going to be getting ready to start doing some mock drafting, probably the first week of April. We're going to start with our From the Couch panel, and we're going to put together a mock draft with trades and whatnot. We're going to try to really get this all, put together and use our heads, even though Jeffrey seems to think I don't know what I'm talking about. I do say I have a pretty good track record with mock drafts. Last year was insane. It was crazy. I don't think I got maybe but 1 or 2 right in the top 10 because everything. I know I got Bijan Robinson to Atlanta right. After that, I think we were all kind of just like befuddled. I think we were all sitting there like, really? I mean, that's my memory of it. I think we were all kind of looking at each other on that screen, Eric, going, what the heck? And also anybody out there watching, submit on our From the Couch Sports Talk group page your bracket picks for the March Madness basketball tournament coming up. And the winner of the brackets will win a FTC t-shirt. So put your brackets in, get them filled out, take pictures, post them on the site. We will take them and we will go through them. And the winner of the contest will win From the Couch Sports Talk t-shirt. So do that. Heck, I might even do that so I can try to win a t-shirt. I haven't bought one yet. I got to do that. I actually need a hoodie. But no, but anyway, other than that, thanks a lot for joining me, Eric. I appreciate you. Stay safe from the tornadoes that are coming your way. If they are, I don't know if they passed, if your warning's passed yet or not, but yeah, stay safe out there in the Dust Bowl. But shirtless. I'm not shirtless, buddy. I don't think I lost my bet that had to have me go shirtless. Lucky for you. Yeah, you don't have to follow basketball. Just look for the bracket and think of the names you're going to put in there.
George,
follow college basketball.
your picks are awesome. So just pick whatever team sounds good, and we'll pick we'll pick just like you do, George.
Yeah, George, just pick whatever team you think looks good. That's what I do when I pick my brackets. I don't know college basketball from anything. So I just do it. I know certain teams that are good, but other than that. But yeah, anyway, you guys, thanks for tuning in. I wish we could have had the whole crew here, or at least Jeffrey, so we could have sat and I could have been moderator between Skip and
Shannon Sharp here. And if Jeffrey is watching, okay, just because I win on the chat during the day doesn't mean you don't need to come on at night. So beat me if you can.
Yeah. Anytime he has a chance to debate, he doesn't. One day we'll scare him out of seclusion. Anyway, you guys all be good. We'll see you all next week. Paul, George, Sean, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the comments, and we'll talk to you guys Tuesday. Have a good one.